When you keep putting time into a game and not improving, it surely can be annoying. What can be more frustrating, however, is not knowing what's holding you back or how to improve. If you find that this is the case for you, you have come to the right place. Hello everyone, my name is Dan, and today I will be directing you through the top 10 things you may be doing wrong without even realizing it. We created this list based on what we've seen people struggle with throughout the ranks during competitive games or coaching sessions. Because this list is created in no specific order, feel free to take from it what you want depending on the area you think you struggle at the most. Furthermore, it is also important to mention that you can take up to more than one tip at a time. If you feel like you are not going to be overwhelmed in the process, implementing 2 or 3 new additions into your gameplay could drastically speed up the improvement process. Without taking up any more of your time, let's get into the question of the day. Today's question is definitely an interesting one. Do you think that being able to see the enemy's economy and ultimate charge makes the game more enjoyable, or should Valorant go down the CSGO route where being able to determine the enemy's economy is a skill in its own? Personally, I've always found the idea of seeing the enemy team's credits and ultimate a little bit strange and catered more to newer players rather than enhancing the game's competitive integrity. But what do you think? Do you like knowing when enemies can buy and when they can ult? Let us know in the comments and we'll read as many as we can. Mistake number 1 is a slightly more advanced tip, yet we chose to reveal it so early in the list only because we've noticed that players in all ranks could significantly benefit from understanding it. What we're leading up to is the concept of adapting to the enemy's game style. What we mean by this is taking into consideration where the enemies have pushed in the past or where their best players are hiding on defense. Some more gameplay mechanics you can adapt to are past trap locations that enemies have chosen and where they place their smokes when pushing on attack. Although we can't go into depth on all these examples due to a significant lack of time, let's give an example to make the whole idea just a little more clear. Let's say you have repeatedly pushed A on bind and the enemy Cypher has continuously put both of his tripwires in mid. What you could do to mitigate them is rush bathroom. Simple things like these, although fairly obvious when pointed out, are almost never used in game and cause useless round losses. Coming in at number 2 is not knowing when to walk versus when to run. Although less complex than number 1, this mistake is often made by many players under the diamond rank. If you find that you're either always running or always walking, here are a few tips that could fix your mistake. First off, you can use the circle on the minimap that shows the distance at which the enemy can hear your footsteps in order to know when to run or walk when pushing by yourself. Some more common rules that you should follow are: don't walk after you've used an ability that reveals your location, don't walk if a teammate right next to you is running, and lastly, don't run if you see one of your teammates sneaking up. Ultimately, this mistake is often made by players because they brush aside the movement in Valorant due to it being mostly shooting based. Don't be one of those people. Take your time and master all areas of the game, and you're sure to improve much faster. Mistake number 3 that we often see people make is baiting, and contrary to what you may think, allowing people to bait. The first part of this, baiting, is easy to understand. If you're playing an entry fragger or someone who should enter first, don't let another teammate go ahead of you only because you don't want to die. Easy enough. The second part, though, you may be a bit confused about. What we mean about not letting people bait is more that you shouldn't be aggressive if you don't have to be. If you see your entry fragger, say a Phoenix or a Reyna, holding back and watching an angle, it is safe to assume that they are waiting for a pick rather than baiting. Don't assume otherwise only because you want to push in and get frags. This is one of the most commonly missed things in Valorant, even in higher ranks. People will just assume that their team wishes to bait them and peek the angle themselves rather than adapting to the fragger's game style and playing a bit more passive. Although economy in itself is important, for mistake number 4, we decided to focus on specifically the gameplay style adaptive you need to implement when trying to be the team's designated opper. Where people's main mistake comes in is being stingy with their money or full saving every round until they have enough to purchase the op. Let's evaluate. What many players tend to do is full save rounds 1 and 2, which would often lead them to losing one or both rounds for no reason. If this doesn't happen, however, and they pull off the save, they will likely buy the operator no matter the circumstances. Realistically, however, if you see that your teammate can't afford a rifle, it's almost never worth it to buy an op, since buying him a gun and yourself a rifle will always be more effective. Lastly, dropping ops has always seemed to be an issue for players. If you're going through all of these troubles to buy a specific gun, ultimately, why give it to the enemy for free? Because this is obviously a bad idea, try to avoid 1v3, 4, or 5 situations by saving or simply drop your op for a Phantom or Vandal before you push. Ultimately, if you find yourself struggling with this and feel overwhelmed by what we just said, here's a slightly more compact list that may help you. 1. Never full save unless you're doing it with your team. If they are buying, you should light buy at the minimum. 2. If your teammate is struggling to buy, give up your op and buy him a gun. 3. If you have to take fights you will likely lose, drop the op and push with another gun to avoid giving it to the enemy. Another thing that we see many people struggle with is avoiding to learn lineups for their characters. Although many characters don't require specific lineups and some plays call for more situational plays, lineups will generally help you with hiding sights and pushing in. Some great characters that benefit from lineups are Omen, Cypher, Brimstone, and Raze. Since we don't have time to go over several lineups, here is one for Cypher that can significantly improve your ability to hold B on split. If you line up in the corner on the right side of this door and aim up slightly to the left to the wooden trim, you can create a one-way that allows you to see the enemy's feet from the back sight. By setting up one-ways such as these, in addition to knowing smoke locations on characters like Omen, you will be able to win many more fights that you otherwise may have lost. Although these surely help, don't only rely on lineups for your smokes, since situational plays are sometimes required to take sights or stop pushes. Coming in at number 6, we will be talking about post-bomb plant holds. Many people feel lost when holding a site alone or being generally outnumbered by the enemies. Generally, in order to mitigate this inner conflict, here is a rule to follow. If you're holding by yourself, don't hold on site. Instead, you should hold in an area off the site that you can quickly peek out of and see the bomb. If you're not alone, however, you should never watch the same area as one of your teammates in order to not leave your backs open. Even if you may think that an enemy is going to push you from a specific area, avoid watching it if your teammate already is. This is because if your intuition is wrong, the enemy will have a much easier time killing both of you and winning the round. In addition to this, we feel like it's also good to mention that roaming or holding off of site is also not the best plan of attack when a bomb is planted and you're down players, only because the site will remain very open and you will allow the enemies to defuse much easier. The number 7 mistake that could be holding you back is refusing or not knowing how to flex. This can be a real problem and cause tilt before the game even starts, ruining teamwork significantly. If you find yourself in this position, you should learn how to play 3 or 4 characters that all have different roles in team composition. This will allow you to gain mastery on your chosen character pool while still having enough diversity to flex in games. Ultimately, the balance of these two is the key to success, so don't go to the extremes and play every agent just because you want to flex. As you develop advanced tactics with these characters, you will find that your overall team compositions throughout games will improve and you will have an easier time winning. When playing defense, especially in lower ranks, it is not uncommon to see people switch sites between rounds. This is not good and can cause serious problems if the enemy chooses to push on opposing site. If you would like to switch sites, you should always make this clear to your teammates so that you can get a replacement and keep an even distribution of players throughout the map. For instance, a good time to switch sites on defense is if the enemies are constantly pushing a site and someone on your team, like a defense-oriented character like Cypher, thinks they can hold the area more consistently than you can. If this is the case, allow them to have the site and play as a team. Our second to last mistake that we often see players make is aiming at the floor. Although crosshair placement is something that you may have heard of before, the only real way to improve in this area is to learn common hold angles throughout maps. Once you learn these, you should focus on holding your crosshair up consistently, even if you don't think an enemy will be coming. This is because you always want to be ready for anything. Dying from something as simple as having your crosshair down could change the outcome of the whole game, and frankly, it's not worth the cost. In order to improve this area much faster, you can visit ProGuides.com, where our coaches will help you learn your maps and aim much better even after the first lesson. With our newly implemented VOD review, you can also submit a video for our pros to analyze for the most hassle-free experience. In only a short period, they will review your VOD and get back to you with a full, detailed analysis of your gameplay. Our last mistake is a pretty big one, so listen closely. What we often see many players do at even the highest ranks is not know when they should flank or rotate when playing defense. Although this is such a common problem, the solution is fairly simple. Think about where the enemies are and what character you're playing. Let me explain. If the enemies have already pushed onto site and your teammates holding that area have died, there's never a need to flank. If this isn't the case, however, you should take into consideration your character before going in. More often than not, if you're a team-based character like Sage or Brim, you shouldn't flank only because your team could use you more on the front line. However, if your abilities are duel-based like Phoenix, you should go for the flank as much as possible in order to get those quick kills and retreat. If you get the hang of this, you will find yourself being much more consistent with your flanks and getting more value out of your abilities. No matter what rank you're in, we hope that you found a mistake throughout this video that you can improve upon and make yourself a better player. As you learn to nullify more and more of these problems, you will surely rank up in no time and be able to reach your desired goal as a player. With that said, good luck, stay safe, and I wish you all great games.